You're listening to Signal Lost, original alien fiction. New story every week. I'm glad you found the frequency.
I have spent 26 years being the first person to hold someone. That is not how midwives usually describe the work, but it is the truest description I have. Before the parents, before the family, before any of the people who will spend a lifetime loving that child, there is me and a pair of gloves, and 30 seconds in which I am the only person who has ever touched them. I have had that 30 seconds something over 2,000 times. It makes you unsentimental in ways that surprise people. You stop being frightened of blood and mess, and the enormous animal fact of it. But it also makes you very, very good at one specific thing, which is knowing what an ordinary newborn looks like. I want to establish that before anything else, because everything I am about to tell you rests on it. I am not a woman who sees patterns in noise. I am a woman who has examined 2,000 infants and could tell you, without hesitation, the difference between a stork bite and a hemangioma at a glance across a room. Skin is my profession. Marks on skin are the most ordinary thing in my working life. My name is Bernadette Ashworth. I am 51 years old. I am a community midwife covering 4 practices in a mixed rural and small-town area, which means that for a quarter of a century, I have been the person who delivers, and then visits, and then weighs, and then reassures. The same families, sometimes across 2 generations. I am telling you this because in March, I delivered a baby girl with 3 fine lines on the sole of her left foot, converging to a single point. And because by June, I had found it on 91 children. And because of what I worked out about which ones. Her name was Isla. I am not going to give her surname. It was a straightforward delivery, at home, at about 4 in the morning. Second baby, no complications. The sort of night that reminds you why you do the job. I did the newborn examination the way I have done it 2,000 times. Head to toe, in order, checking everything. When I got to her feet, I saw the mark on the left sole. 3 lines, fine, converging to a point. Perhaps 8 millimeters across. I want to tell you exactly what I thought, because it matters. I thought, that's unusual. That was the entirety of my reaction. Not alarm, not recognition. It did not look like a birthmark, but skin does a great many things, and a proportion of them do not look like anything you have a name for. It was not raised, not inflamed, not warm. It was not going to hurt her. I noted it in the record as an incidental finding, mentioned it to the mother as nothing to worry about, and moved on with my night. I did not have any of the information you have. I want that understood. I had never heard of any of this. I had not listened to any podcast. I had no reason on earth to look at 3 lines on a baby's foot and feel anything at all. 6 days later, I delivered a boy at the district unit and found the same mark, the same size, on the back of his right shoulder. That was when I started paying attention. Not fear, professional attention. 2 identical presentations in a week is the sort of thing you notice because it might mean something clinical. A new dermatological presentation. Something environmental. Something in the water, honestly, was my first thought. I work in an agricultural area, and we have had scares before. So I did what any competent clinician does. I started keeping a record. Between the 10th of March and the end of June, I personally examined 340 newborns. That is more than I would normally see, and I want to be honest that I engineered it. I picked up extra shifts. I covered for colleagues. I volunteered for the clinics I would ordinarily have avoided. I told myself it was diligence. It was not diligence. It was compulsion. And I recognize it now for what it was. The same compulsion that made a linguist keep reading and a driver keep plotting arrows on a map. Once you have seen the edge of a pattern, you cannot stop pulling. 340 children. On 91 of them, I found the mark. Always the same. 3 fine lines converging to a single point, 6 to 10 millimeters, unraised, painless. On soles, shoulders, the back of the neck, the inside of a wrist. once at the base of the spine. Never anywhere that would be visible in ordinary life. I want you to sit with that detail, because I have. Never on a face, never on the back of a hand. Always somewhere a nappy or a sleeve or a lifetime of ordinary clothing would cover. I photographed what I could. I raised it carefully with 2 colleagues. One had not noticed anything. The other had seen a couple of odd ones, exhumed a local birthmark cluster. I made a formal note to the practice. The practice made a formal note to the health board. The health board's response, when it came 10 weeks later, described the finding as consistent with a benign congenital pigmentation variant of no clinical significance, and recommended no further action. I want to be fair. That is a perfectly reasonable response. It was benign. It was of no clinical significance. Everything in that letter was true. But by the time it arrived, I was not interested anymore in what the mark was. I was interested in which babies had it. I had my 340 records, and I had my 91. And one evening in July, I sat down at my kitchen table with the practice registers to see whether the marked children had anything in common. I checked everything I could think of. Sex? Nothing. Near enough 50-50. Birth weight, gestation, delivery method, feeding, maternal age, season, water supply, the 4 different practices, home births versus unit births. Nothing. The 91 were, on every clinical measure, a random sample of the 340. Then I checked something that was not a clinical measure, because I was tired and I had run out of sensible ideas. I checked the addresses. The marked children were clustered, not by village, not by practice, not by distance from anything obvious. When I put them on the map, they clustered along the roads, specifically along a corridor perhaps 11 miles wide, running east and a little south across my entire coverage area. The route the main traffic takes through my patch, the road the lorries use, the way you drive if you are passing through toward the far side of the county. 90 of my 91 lived within that corridor. The 340 as a whole were spread evenly across my area. Whatever this was, it did not care about the water or the fields or the genetics. It cared about a line on a map. And then there was the 91st. She lived 12 miles outside the corridor, in the wrong direction entirely. And I sat with that outlier for 2 days, and eventually I did the unprofessional thing and I telephoned the mother and asked her, as casually as I could manage, whether she had traveled at all during the pregnancy. She said no. She said she had barely left the house. The sickness had been terrible. She had done almost nothing for months except sit in bed with headphones on, listening to podcasts. I asked her, and I do not know why I asked her, what she listened to. She named an episode. She said it was the strange one everybody had been talking about in the spring, the one about the 6 people. And she said the odd thing was that she must have fallen asleep listening to it, because she had woken in the night convinced she had heard a sound in it, and never gone back to check. I want to explain what I realized, because it is the thing I have not been able to put down. Everyone I have since read about, the 6 of them, and the ones after, was marked because something happened to them. They went somewhere, or heard something, or saw something, or understood something. There was an encounter. The mark was a consequence. These children had no encounter. They had not gone anywhere. They had not heard anything, or seen anything, or understood anything, because they had no capacity yet to understand anything at all. Most of them had been marked before they were born. Some had been marked, I now think, before they had faces. They were marked because of where their mothers were, because of a road their mother's house happened to sit near, because of 90 seconds of audio their mother fell asleep listening to. Which means it is not selecting people anymore. It has stopped needing to choose. It is simply saturating an area, a corridor, a broadcast, a frequency, and marking everything that develops inside it. The way a stain spreads through cloth. No intent toward any individual child. No encounter, no moment. Just proximity and time. I understood, sitting at my kitchen table, that the mark had stopped being a record of something that had happened to a person. It had become an inheritance. And I understood the second thing, which is worse, and which I have told nobody until now. If it can mark a child in the womb, through a wall, through a road, through a pair of cheap headphones, then the marking was never the difficult part. It was never the achievement. All those years of patient, careful, one-at-a-time encounters were not it doing something hard. They were it doing something precise. And it has stopped bothering to be precise, which you only do when you no longer need the count to be accurate, which you only do when you are nearly finished. I checked myself, of course, in the bathroom mirror at 1 a.m, like a fool. I have it, behind my left ear in the hairline, where I would never have found it if I had not been looking with 2 mirrors and a torch. I do not know when. I have delivered 91 marked children with my bare hands inside gloves, and I have no idea whether it came from that, or from the road I drive to work, or from the air. The letter came the following week. No stamp, no postmark. Pushed under the door of my house in the night. 1 sheet. 1033.7. I have a radio in the kitchen. I have not turned it on since. And I have not stopped working. That is what I want you to understand about me, if you understand nothing else. I go out every day and I deliver babies and I do the newborn examination, head to toe, in order, checking everything, the way I have 2,000 times. I check the feet, I check the shoulders, I check behind the ears, and when I find it, and I find it constantly now, it is well past 91. I stopped counting in the autumn because the counting was doing something to me. I do the only thing left that I am able to do. I say nothing. I note it as an incidental finding. I tell the mother it is nothing to worry about. That skin does strange things, that it will likely fade. I lie to them, in other words, every time, gently and professionally, and with a completely steady voice. Because what would I say? What is the sentence? There is no version of it that is not the end of my career and the beginning of that family's ruin. And it would not save the child, because there is nothing to save the child from. Nothing is going to come through the window. Nothing is going to take her. She has simply been written down, before she could speak, in a ledger nobody can read, for a purpose nobody can name. So I hold her foot for a moment longer than I need to, and I hand her back to her mother. And I say she's perfect. She is, as well. That is the thing. Every single one of them is perfect. My name is Bernadette Ashworth. 26 years ago, I chose a profession on the understanding that I would be present at the beginning of things. That is the whole appeal of it. Everything else in medicine is repair. You arrive after the damage. You manage decline. You do what you can with what is left. Midwifery is the one corner of it where you are there before anything has gone wrong, before the story starts, at the point where a person is still entirely potential. I have thought a great deal about that word, potential. It means the version of a life in which nothing has been decided yet. There is a generation coming that will never have had that. 91 that I know of, and well past that now, and however many across however many corridors, and however many broadcasts in however many countries, I will never hear about. Children who were entered into something before they drew breath, who will grow up ordinary and loved and unremarkable, and go to school, and fall in love, and never once be told that the small mark behind their ear or under their foot was there before their eyes opened. I do not know what the list is for. I have read what the others said, and I do not think any of them knew either. But I know it is no longer selecting. And I know that a thing which has stopped selecting is a thing that has stopped needing to be careful. I hold them for a moment longer than I need to. All of them, marked or not. Because I am the first person who ever touches them. And because for that 30 seconds, I am the only one who knows. And because it is the one thing I have left to give. Then I hand them back, and I say the true thing, which is that they are perfect. And I go out to the car, and I drive home along a road that runs east and a little south. My name is Bernadette Ashworth, and this was my signal.
Signal lost. New story every week. Have you heard the frequency?